Senate. Among other provisions, it cuts spending and raises additional revenues. One of its supporters so far, Senator Shaheen, Democrat of New Hampshire, is joining us today. And Senator Shaheen, it can be difficult, but the debt ceiling and this long-term debt solution are two separate things, but related because we're trying to negotiate on both of them. So I want that to be clear for our viewers. Let's just start with the debt ceiling first of all. We're hearing some more talk about a temporary extension for the debt ceiling. Would you vote for that? Would you be for that?
Well, I think it depends on what it looks like. It's clear we have a two-part problem. The first part is we have to raise the debt ceiling, and I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about why we have to do that. We have to do that to ensure that we pay for all of the expenses that we've incurred. It's not to increase spending. It's to basically pay the debts of the United States of America. And we cannot allow a default on our debt ceiling, because that would have huge ramifications for business, for average families out there who have to pay their mortgage payment, their credit cards. It would have a crescendo effect that could put us back into a recession. So that is not something I think any of us want to happen.
So if push came to shove, to avoid this August 2nd deadline, it seems like you're saying that you would be for something that would at least make sure that we're paying our bills, which would be a temporary, raise in the debt ceiling.
Well, we have to raise the debt ceiling. There's no option, I believe, for that. And we haven't seen what the various plans are. I know there's still negotiations going on, but I'm hopeful they're going to come up with something that will allow us to raise the debt ceiling and give us time to negotiate on a long-term debt and deficit reduction package, because not only do we need to raise the debt ceiling, but we also need to deal with this country's debt and deficit so that we can put us on a long-term positive economic path that can help give businesses certainty and create jobs for people.
So let's get to that long-term package of sorts, the one that has been discussed in, well, not a whole great amount of detail by the Gang of Six, but it seems like so far there's been some positive reception, and I've read that you're positive on it until this point. And again, we're still looking for details. Now, one of the parts of this plan talks about reducing tax breaks for a certain segment of the population, specifically the middle class, when it comes to mortgage interest, health insurance, charitable giving. Again, reducing the tax breaks, not necessarily eliminating them. But Democrats have said repeatedly that they don't want to raise taxes in the middle class, and Republicans say they don't want to raise taxes on anybody. So do you think this actually has a chance of passing? Are you behind reducing some of these tax breaks so we can have a compromise here on a long-term debt solution?
Well, we still have to work out some of the details, and certainly I don't like everything that I've heard about this package, but I think it's a bipartisan, balanced approach. It puts everything on the table, discretionary spending, mandatory programs, defense spending, and revenues, and I think that's very important. And one of the approaches that it takes is to try to simplify our tax code and make it fairer, both for individuals and for business. And so it takes a look at those tax expenditures, what are called tax expenditures, so things like loopholes that allow people to get write-offs for yachts and for racehorses, but also, as you point out, some other things like home mortgage payments. And I think there is a compromise to be reached on some of these that will allow us to get rid of the onerous tax expenditures and keep what's important to the middle class, and certainly I support that.
It seems like on both sides of the aisle, people agree that the tax code could be simplified, so we'll see if that's something that can be grown upon for some more compromise. Just a quick final question for you. You're the first woman in our country's history to be a governor and also a United States senator. A pretty interesting fact.
And it is. It's surprising.
It is surprising. And as a governor, you balanced your budget and you had to reach for consensus. And now you're in the Senate. Why is it so difficult? Why is it done on a state level? And it is done by many states. Why can't we find a consensus here? What do you think is really holding up everything?
Boy, Jenna, that's one of the things that I've been very frustrated about since I've been here. The fact is, I think we've got to figure out how to work in a bipartisan way. We need to put aside the posturing and recognize that whatever when you're working in the best interest of the country, you have to be willing to compromise and you have to be willing to negotiate. We all have our bottom lines, but we also have to be willing to compromise, and that means everybody gives up something.
Yeah, we'll see if we can do it. It's an interesting perspective, and we appreciate having yours today, Senator. Thank you so much for joining us. Just ahead, we're going to be talking to Tennessee Senator Bob Corker, a Republican. He's also saying the same thing. Hey, everybody stop the name calling. Let's get something done. But one of the things he's behind is this cut, cap, and balance.